Aloha. Bear with me as I go off on a little bit of a tangent for a second. I always feel a like imposter syndrome when I get around to making a video like this, and it comes from like early on where this whole like culture, even before the internet, just to date myself, when I was a kid growing up and I wanted to like, get into music, comic books, anything like that, there was always this like gatekeeper mentality that I was aware of that was just, kind of thrown in my face. There was, when I was getting into music, and I started wearing like Pearl Jam shirts, and kids would be like, name 5 songs, like there's some kind of authority over who and what is like the right or wrong way to be, into something. Like when you're exposed to it and how you explore it is, you're only righteous if you do it a certain way. And that's always really bothered me, that's always, and it's detracted from my willingness sometimes to go into things because of feeling like I'm not worthy, I'm not righteous, I'm not good enough. I've walked into comic book stores where I feel like they're like looking down their nose at me because I'm like, looking for some popular series, and it's like, oh, you don't know about all this abstract indie release stuff that you should, And the word that was thrown around a lot when I was a kid, it was poser. You're a poser if you get into something later than somebody else, if you discovered a band or you discovered some IP later than somebody else. You can see in my podcast, I'll put a card up above, that I grew up with classical musician parents. So there was no reason that I would be exposed. I didn't have any older siblings that, that were already like cool and passing down records to me that, that I should be into. I got exposed to stuff later. What I'm trying to say is like that all feeds into this stuff that I'm now. I'm in my 30s and I only got into a lot of this adventuring stuff later in life, like after college. I went tandem skydiving 3 times in my 20s. And that was more because, I knew people that wanted to do it. It was exciting. I've always really liked heights, and, I've enjoyed the thrill of like being up high and looking down, like when we went to the Space Needle in Seattle or the one in Toronto when I was growing up, and Empire State Building and stuff like that. It was always fun, and I've been on a lot of airplanes growing up, and the thrill of being up high, but finally getting the chance to jump out of a plane was really thrilling to me. But the sport itself was so not cost effective and hard to break into that it was something I had thought about, but I just didn't really have the opportunity to take it further than just doing some tandem dives. Fast forward into my later 20s, I moved to Maui, and this kind of stuff is just much more apparent and natural and organic to the place that that the islands are. So as you'll see later in this video, I spent a day at a place in Oahu and jumped off a 30-foot lava rock for the day, and it was just like, where have you been my whole life? However, going back to what I said originally about that imposter syndrome, even though I haven't necessarily had anybody like tell me that I'm a poser or unworthy, to be making videos about this stuff, I often have that internal narrative where I feel that way. I feel like an imposter for, putting this stuff out there because it's so much more common to see, reels and shorts and stuff on television and just all over the internet, a more like elite way of doing things. Like I'll be sitting in a pizza parlor and Chive TV is on and it's showing all this amazing, jumping from like 100, 150 foot cliffs into little narrow basins at the bottom and doing 3 backflips on the way down and all that kind of stuff, and like these elite parkour people, and that stuff is awesome. And man, I wish that I could do it. I wish that I had a lifelong exposure to like being a gymnast and being a diver, but I didn't grow up in that culture. I didn't grow up doing swim team or anything or dive team. I didn't have a lot of access to high up places and things to jump into, let alone the skills and confidence building to be able to do all that wild and wacky stuff that you often see online. Nevertheless, once I discovered how much fun it was to do something like that, also things like surfing and mountain boarding and all the other stuff that this channel is about, regardless of how good or worthy or elite I feel about those things, I enjoy them for myself. And I assume that there are people out there like me that like the idea of things and maybe are tepid about getting into it or exploring it further because it's scary, or you just feel like it's too late. It's not worth the time and investment or risk because, there's already so many other people better at stuff. But honestly, I don't do these things to impress anybody other than myself. I'm not putting this out online to impress anybody, even though I compare myself to people sometimes, but I think that's just a natural thing to do, especially when you're entering into something. You want to know what's in front of you and what you could be capable of and what you could work towards. But I think everybody has their own comfort level and their own way of exploring and learning about stuff. And mine is to try stuff out and get as good at it as I can, but not take it too far where I become detached from the enjoyment of it. And because I have a background in video production and I like to chronicle my own progression with things, it's a learning tool for me. And it's also something that I hope that could inspire other people that are more like me, that are wary of the gatekeepers and anybody that might make us feel unworthy or not confident enough to even try things that might be fun. It's never too late, and it's not about them, and it's not about the perception of it. It's about how you feel about it and how much fun it is for you. That's why I keep pursuing these kind of things. I don't want to live my life regretting not even having tried this stuff. So if anything that I've said is helpful at all, that's awesome. But getting back into what this specific video is about, I call this cliff jumping and not cliff diving, because I do differentiate between the two because I'm not a diver. Maybe someday I'll be more comfortable doing flips and things off of rocks into water. But at this point in my adventure career, I am feet first jumping off of high things into water. And that's where I stand right now. So let's take a look at some of the high places that I've jumped off of. I got hooked in the idea of climbing up tall places and jumping off of them into water at the surf-famous Waimea Bay on the west side of Oahu. There they have the rock, which is about a 30-foot lava rock that, while on a visit with a friend, I spent an entire day climbing up and jumping off. I cover these experiences in much more detail in a different video called Adventure Hikes, which you can see by clicking on the card above. But there were 2 hikes I did on Maui that involved some pretty intense cliff jumping. Both of them were on the north shore of the island and followed the same river, I believe. The bamboo hike was through a forest of bamboo, and for a lot of people the hike ended at a small ridge that overlooked a pond that if you jumped into, you could swim across, climb up a waterfall, and then on the other edge of the pond that fed that waterfall was another waterfall and a cliff face that you could rock climb up and jump off of. And then the other one in this area was called the Commando hike. And after a lot of rock climbing and jungle traversing and wading and climbing through a lava tube, there was a series of 3 cliff jumps that you had to do to get back down on the other end of the hike. I was told that one was about 15 feet. The other one was maybe 30 to 35, but the last one was, I was told, 60 feet. Where I currently live in Richmond, Virginia, a favorite local jump spot is an old bridge column in the middle of the James River that someone tied a ladder to, which I've jumped from many times while on kayaking trips. Here's me psyching myself up to jump from a, 30-ish, 35-foot cliff at Grasshopper Point Park in Oak Creek Canyon, just outside of Sedona, Arizona. All right, here at Black Rock in Ka'anapali Resort. But I always heard about Black Rock when I was living here, and I never did it because I went to Waimea Bay in Oahu and did the rock there, and I heard that was bigger and better, so I just never made the effort. But now I'm here and I got to do it, so I'm gonna swim and snorkel out that way. I'm gonna get on the rock and jump off. Let's do this.